My name is Jessica, and this is...
And I'm Kimberly.
And thank you so much for joining us and your interest today. Today, we're going to be discussing emergency preparedness and disaster preparedness for older adults. So before we get started, make sure that you take the time to look around in your surroundings. In the room that I'm in, not sure in the room that you're in, I have one emergency exit that I see in case of a fire. So make sure that you have at least two ways to get out of a room in case of an emergency or disaster, but not to worry. We will cover these topics as we go. So, and if you have a hard of hearing or low visibility, feel free to come up a little closer. Don't worry, we won't bite. And let's go ahead and get this presentation started. Next slide. So when we think about disaster and emergency preparedness, we want to be able to focus on because these disasters and emergencies, they can happen without warning sometimes. So we want to make sure that we have a plan, right? So today's presentation is designed to give you some practical tips and ways, of the things to do before, during, and after an emergency or disaster. So as I already said, right, what is being prepared? Well, being prepared is like kind of already what I said, right? We're going to give you those tools, those resources and tips to do before, so that way you could get ready and be prepared and get ready now. And not only that, during, so you know how to respond, and after, so you know how to recover quickly. When you know how to respond, you're able to recover quickly. So all these steps are going to be all before. What can you do before to prepare and get ready now? So make sure that you, and don't feel like this is so much information. All this information we're going to go through in more detail. But at first, let's start with getting informed. When you talk about, when you're thinking about getting informed, what local disasters are more likely to happen in your area, right? You want to be able to learn about what's most likely to happen. Is it a house fire? Is it an earthquake? Depending on what area you live in, you'll need to adapt for that. So once you are able to identify what local disasters are, you want to take a moment to also assess your own personal needs, right? Because your own needs might be affected during a disaster or emergency. So you would want to be able to think how your needs would need to be met during that. So this would allow you to build a support network, right? This could be people, in your area or around your area, either near or far, people like your neighbors, your caretakers, friends, family, anybody that you can trust, right? That's in your inner circle. So once you're able to build that support network, right? You're allowed to develop that plan. So what goes into developing that plan, right? Well, you got to gather all your helpers once you're able to identify them, and that gives you time to develop a plan. So once you're looking to develop a plan, right, you want to look, will you shelter in place? Will you decide to evacuate? So that's something that you want to decide when you're developing your plan, right? So depending on what you decide, you want to be able to... Is there a question or just comments? Okay. All right. So once you finalize that communication, develop your plan, you want to create a communication plan. So this will be, just in case communication is not accessible, right? You want to have alternative ways,
Sorry, Jessica. I think the comment was that someone said don't say rate too much. So I just wanted to add that comment there. Not to stop you or anything.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Hey, thank you for the tip. So like I said, we'll go over these in more detail, so don't be intimidated by the information, right? So once you're able to create that plan and gather the supplies, you'll want to be able to prepare documents you'll need, right? Those important documents, whether they're personalized or, your birth certificate, social security card, you want to be able to have a safe place for that. So looking more into how you're into another step into before and how you're able to prepare and get ready now. Like I mentioned, right, you want to be able to get informed, what's most likely to happen, learn about your community, and, ask, depending on if you rent or own, is there a renter's insurance? Is there a different rescue plan? Because sometimes, homeowners insurance or renter's insurance, they tend to only cover, for instance, house fires. Anything, another disaster, it tends to be something extra that you have to by yourself. So make sure that you look into, what resources are in your area to be able to access in the case of emergency or disaster. So this kind of leads into, right, as you're gathering those resources, you have to not only sign up for alerts and warnings, so that way you'll know the difference in between each alert and warning. And it also, when you're able to sign up for these alerts and warnings, here at the Red Cross, we actually do free classes online or in person for training. For training. Sometimes, they can be free, but of course they cost. But take advantage of the courses that we have. We have CPR, first aid. We have for babysitters, first responders. We have a lot of great classes. So definitely take advantage of these resources that we have. So, as I discussed earlier, when thinking about your needs, I briefly mentioned, right, your physical and the medical and the cognitive, but, right, you want to think about how these will all be affected in the case of a disaster or emergency, because depending on the emergency or disaster, right, you might need, some assistance. You might need to take extra precautions depending on what needs you have, right? So this will be just depending on what needs that you have. So you want to make sure that you not only take into consideration, like, how I said, if your needs will require you to stay in place or to evacuate, and to plan, to stay at home for 2 weeks or more, depending on the condition and the natural disaster. So, this will require, do you need any medicine that needs to go in the refrigerator? Do you need any medicine that, do you need power for an AED machine? You would want to make a list of all the devices that you need, or if you're able to have alternative. So this would be a good time to, reach out to your doctors or your like your PG&E professionals for existence of, for example, if they, turn off your gas, the professionals are the only ones that are able to turn it back on. So make sure if they turn off your gas, don't turn it back on. And make sure that you're able to have a list of all your devices that you'll need and medications as well. So as you build your support network, right? I talked about those, identifying those helpers, right? It could be, a friend, a neighbor, so someone that lives close, but also someone that lives far away, right? Because depending on the disaster or emergency, the person that's near to you might not be able to reach you, whether from communication is down or they might need help themselves, right? So you want to make sure that you are able to help the people that are helping you as well. So that way everybody could be safe in the case of an emergency or disaster. So once you're able to identify those people, you want to make sure that you make a plan with them, you meet with them, and, allow them to know, hey, I might need some help. I might need some help, or I might need, or I can help you, right? Because older people, they tend to be, assets in the community, or the people go to them and for assistance, right? So you want to be able to help the people that you're helping, and be able to identify with, these people within your network and your helpers. So, as I mentioned, once you're able to make this list of helpers, sometimes communications might be down. So make sure that you have, if you're able to use a cell phone versus a home phone. Home phones are great, but sometimes, the landlines can be down. So a cell phone would be a great alternative as a way to communicate and for people to know how to get a hold of you in case they're not able to because of a disaster or emergency. So as you go through each of these steps, right? These are all steps reminding you this is all steps you can do before to prepare and get ready now. So as you're developing your plan, you want to plan for local disasters. Is there things that you're going to need to take with you? Whether you stay or evacuate. And like I said, make sure that you plan for 2 to 3 weeks. Depending on how much water you'll need, you might need a gallon, for hygiene purposes, and another gallon for other purposes as well. So you always want to make sure for each person to have at least 1 gallon of water when you evacuate. But if you plan to stay, right, what will you'll need? You'll need alternative battery packs or packs that are able to stay longer or be used longer periods of times, depending on if you plan to stay in your home in the case of this. So if you plan to stay in your home, you want to make sure that you know if they're going to turn off the power, the gas, what are the alternate resources that you can get. You have some of these on the table as well, but we'll get into those a little bit later. So, and also too, make sure that you have a plan to evacuate in the case you have to evacuate, because you might not know if you'll need to receive help or assistance. So make sure that you request that from your helpers, right? Your helpers that you identify as you develop your plan. So again, another prepare and get ready now. So this is another step you can do before, right? So it's making your plan. So making this plan, consists of, making sure you have smoke alarms in every level of your household. Make sure you have it outside your bedrooms. Having smoke alarms not only is able to notify you of a case of a home fire, it allows you to be able to get out in 2 minutes. When there's a home fire, you only have 2 minutes to get out, so you make sure you get out and you stay out in the case of a home fire. So as you develop this plan, right, I talked about knowing what policies are in place depending on if you rent or own, what type of insurance is in place. The house fires are typically covered under homeowners insurance, but what about if you rent, right? Is that something that's protected in your renter's insurance? So, reach out to your public, the manager's office, and make sure that you know how you're able to protect your property. So make sure that you review, practice, and refresh all these, and you share this information, because not only is it able to protect your property, you're able to protect yourself and others as well, to allow your recovery to start even quicker. So when you create a communication plan, you want to be able to share that plan, because when you create something, you want to share it, right? Just like this presentation was created to be able to share it with all of you. You want to be able to share that plan with your contact information and your support network, because you want to be able to, they'll not to worry, right? Especially when you are older, the younger people tend to worry about you. So you want to make sure you don't worry and they know how to find you, right? So, this is when I was mentioning, write down phone numbers, make sure that you have a cell phone. If you don't like a cell phone, if you like a radio, we have these radios you're able to get. They're emergency radios that allows you to get weather alerts and listen to the it allows you to do weather alerts and get emergency alerts that are important in the case of emergency or disaster. So, this would mean, write down emergency phone numbers for, the local police department, the local fire department, the local, fire, gas, whatever is around in your neighborhood, right? Because all our neighborhoods are completely different, are unique to us. So this is where it goes into creating a plan, assessing your own needs, because every community is different, and you'll want to make sure that you have resources and the tools that are available to you in the case of a disaster or emergency.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. We have one question from Martha. It's asking, will we be able to get these slides to review later? There will be a recording of this presentation. I believe it'll be on YouTube Livestream, so you can access that there. And then also the American Red Cross, and we'll go over this at the end. We'll have we'll walk you through where to go to our website, and it's going to walk you through emergency planning and everything for evacuating, and, knowing what medical supplies or personal emergency supplies you'll need during an emergency or evacuation. So we'll go over that at the end.
Yeah, and if all these topics that I'm mentioning, you could always go to, for more information, go to redcross.org/older adults, and this will focus and be able to, hopefully answer your questions and be able to provide more resources. And not only that, they'll also give you a link to other ways to prepare, depending on what you need, right? What Kimberly was saying, those resources. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So, okay, right, another before, prepare and get ready now step. So now that we talked about a plan, we talked about, creating a contact list and gathering all these things, right? Well, as we gather these resources, you have to be able to gather supplies, right? So now we're going to be able to talk about these emergency supplies kits that you're able to have to be able to. They're portable in the case that you need to evacuate or in the case that you need to stay home. So now Kimberly will go over these ways to do the emergency personalized kits.
Okay. Hi everyone. Again, I'm Kimberly, and today I will be walking you through the next few slides. And I was actually going to ask this question: has anyone seen an emergency kit before, or even has an emergency kit at home? I know I can't see all of you, so if you can put it in the chat, that would be great. If not, then I can just go. No, okay. So I'm assuming no one has seen an emergency kit. All right, so I'm about to walk you through it right now. So what I have right here is a Red Cross emergency kit. It doesn't have to be a Red Cross backpack. It can pretty much be any backpack you have available at home. And you would personalize it with your personal needs as well as your medical needs. So to begin with personal needs, right here, for example, you would pack a water box. I don't know if you can see that. Then you have a food supply kit. We also have a radio, just like Jessica was talking about earlier, a flashlight, and then we have a first aid kit and a pill box as well. So these are just a couple of supplies you can put in there, but you would personalize it for your needs. And when you're evacuating during an emergency, you want to have a supply kit that you're going to be able to use for at least 3 days or up to 2 weeks as well. And then also, if you have a car, you would only need a supply for 24 hours as well. So that's a good thing to note. And then for medical needs, you want to have a supply kit for 30 days. And this would include maybe packing your prescription eyewear, and then also having assistive devices such as a cane or even a walker as well. So that's what you would put in there. And make sure also that you gather enough items for yourself and everyone in your household. So, making sure that everyone in your household also has an emergency kit as well. And then if you have a pet in your home, packing the food bowls, their food, their leash, their collars, anything you can think of is what would go in one of these kits or your own backpack that you do have at home. Okay, all right. So our next slide, sorry, drop that. So before, prepare and get ready now. So we're still in the preparing phase. So preparing the documents you'll need. So it's important to locate important documents. So these documents would include your social security card, maybe your property insurance, credit cards, your deeds, your loans. You would also include gathering medical information. So, your prescription, a list of your prescription, the names of your doctors, their phone numbers, the hospital phone number, is all important information you should keep in there. And you want to keep and share a contact list too. So who are your emergency contacts? Do you have your neighbor's contact? In the case of an emergency, do you have the hospital phone number? So that's something to think about. And then also keeping a copy of your plans. And then also having safeguard documents. And in terms of safeguard documents, you want to make sure that all your documents that you do have goes in one of those, those folder sleeves, or even a waterproof, like a waterproof box, or even a safe, so it doesn't get wet, especially if there's flooding. Alrighty, I'm gonna move on over to the next slide. Okay, so now we're responding during an emergency. You always want to stay informed. So if you watch the news is gonna give you that information and telling you, hey, there's a wildfire nearby, or there's a home fire, or there's a flood. So you always want to watch the news for that. And then also, radio alerts. You have a radio nearby. You want to make sure that you have that close by. Also, knowing how to take action to protect yourself. So do you have an emergency plan with you? Do you know what to do and how to act, in the case of if an emergency happens? Is there someone that can help you or assist you to evacuate? And then also, again, stay or go. Like if local police department and firefighters are telling you, hey, you need to evacuate, in that case you would evacuate. Or if there's an immediate warning, it's a good idea to stay informed of that as well. Let's see. Well, maybe before I keep going further, I see that Martha has a question. Let's see. What should we bring to ensure do not resuscitate? I've heard cases of people who are found unconscious and resuscitated anyhow despite DNR on file with their own doctor. What should we bring to ensure do not resuscitate? Hey, Jessica, do you...
So thank you for your question, Martha. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking about, do not resuscitate orders that people have, actually, right?
Oh wait, sorry. I see Kim just put something on file. So keep a copy of your DNR with you as part of your important documents. I don't know if that answers your question, Martha.
Yeah, or I was gonna say too, Martha. You know how they have bracelets to be able to identify. You know how I have my little chakra bracelets. They have bracelets, right? Like if you want to be identified as PTSD, maybe that could be another way. A bracelet to get that says that, or how it was mentioned in the chat, have that copy of that document for your wishes to be respected. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and let's see, to continue too. So as I was saying, stay or go. So in the event, if there's a heat wave, you want to make sure, for example, that you're going to, one of the local American Red Cross shelters. That way you're not at home without air conditioning. And that's to my next point. It's like you want to locate those public shelters. So the American Red Cross will be there in the case of that emergency, whether it's a heat wave, if there's a wildfire, if there's flooding around. So it's good to stay informed and always ask for help. Ask your neighbors, contact those emergency contacts you have in your plan, so they can help you and assist you in the time that we do need to evacuate. Alrighty, let's see. Okay. So after knowing how to recover, so this is our recovery phase. You always want to make sure you're returning to your home safely. So always staying informed of those alerts that your local emergency management department, your police department, your fire department is telling you it's safe to go home. So it's good to stay informed of that. And then working with trusted resources. Do you have someone you can talk to after the event of an emergency or a disaster? I was going to say that the American Red Cross does provide recovery services as well. So, we have trained professionals to talk to you about, how to recover from the emergency, because it can be very hard and it's tax worthy as well. So we do provide those services. And then managing property damage. We always get those questions of, what's going to happen, after, if in the case that someone wasn't able to come home and, or they lost their fire insurance or, their home insurance cards, we'll provide you those services as well, getting in touch with the county number, 211, talking to someone with Red Cross to go over that information as well. Okay, so knowing how to recover, after a disaster. So first, when in doubt, throw it out. So if you don't remember any of the information that you've gathered, you would, make sure that you throw that out. If it's something you don't need, yeah. And then the second step would be aware of the risk of electrocution. So after a flood, you want to make sure that you're being very careful on, outlets in your home, making sure that, you're not hurting yourself and risking yourself as well. And the third step would be only use a generator outdoors and away from the windows. And that just because of safety hazards. Alrighty. Next slide. Okay, so tips for caregivers, how to help with planning and responding. So first, you want to understand what you may be expected and required to do. So, as we go back from the previous slides, you want to make sure that you know the medical supplies that your client may need if you were to evacuate during an emergency, and just having a kit available for the client. The second would be ensuring you received training in first aid and CPR. I don't want this to happen, but what if something did happen to a client? Many of us do get nervous and anxious during an emergency. So if someone was having a heart attack or the hyperventilating, it's good to have that training in to prepare yourself if that moment did come. Third would be knowing how to provide additional emotional and behavioral support. I gotta say, we get those emotions, being anxious, being nervous, scared, or depressed, and knowing how to de-escalate that and having those communications that communication and knowing how to talk as a person in the event of an emergency would be good to have that knowledge on. And lastly, having a current picture of the person you're caring for. If you're both displaced during an emergency, you want to make sure that you know how, or you recognize the person or your client in this case. That way you can both come together if you're both gathering, let's say, at like a Red Cross shelter. Okay, next slide. Oh, whoops. Okay, so now that we've gone over the presentation, we actually want your feedback on how we did today and if you've learned anything today. So the survey is just basically saying, or I'll actually go over the questions. So the first one is going to be, I am more aware of the types of disasters I may experience. You would either say yes or no. And then the second question would be, I feel more prepared for a disaster. So you would either answer yes or no. Number 3, I will follow up on disaster readiness steps discussed. Yes and no. And actually, we have a link for you to fill this out as well. So we're going to attach it in the chat box. And we're hoping that the link will be on there in just a second. Let's see. And then, does anyone have any questions so far from the presentation?
Yeah, feel free to drop your questions or mute yourself if you'd like, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that there are while we wait for that link to go up as well.
And there's no right or wrong answer too. I mean, if you don't feel prepared, it's okay. But we're hoping you learned something today.
Yes, we're really hoping you learned something with us today. If not, we could always do another. There's plenty of Be Red Cross Ready, right? Those presentations, those classes that I talked about and discussed earlier. There's definitely more presentations that we can talk about in more detail. If you have little ones at home, or I know this is a office that does more like a workshop. So request workshops. I'm pretty sure they would appear to your guys' needs. And then also too, don't forget at 4 o'clock. What was it, Kimberly? What's happening at 4 again? The Wills and Trust is happening at 4 o'clock. So make sure you stay tuned and come back at 4 o'clock for the Wills and Trust at 4 o'clock, provided by ACC Services.
Okay, let me know if you've all received the link. We'll put the questions back up.
Yes, please let us know in the chat box or by voice if the link is working. And this is all feedback for us, so feel free to be honest. We hope that you learned something today because we all want to be able to be prepared, right? To be able to be prepared and know what to do before, during, and after an emergency.
Okay, awesome.
Good. Thank you for that comment. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm actually going to move to the, I'm going to go forward. Alrighty, so as I was saying earlier, the Red Cross does provide an emergency app. This is easily accessible on your phone, so it can be downloaded on an Android or even an iPhone. And it will walk you through, the weather. It'll give you those emergency alerts to make sure that it keeps you and your family safe during an emergency. It even it walks you through an evacuation plan, what to include in your emergency kit, what to do in the event of specific hazards as well. So I would highly encourage you to download that app on your phone today if you can. And it even provides trainings as well. And just like Jessica was saying earlier, if you're interested in another be right across, or if you're interested in getting emergency preparedness training, it will have that on there as well.
Yeah, I know I have the app on my phone, and when I downloaded it, me and my family were able to make a, emergency escape plan, for fire. So I know it was definitely useful. And two, just like to add to what Kimberly was saying, all the information that we talked about today, it will be on that app. So, yeah, maybe to the question you guys were talking about, besides the recording, you guys will also have an app as a reference, and also to a website. Feel free to go to redcross.org for more information, or also too, you guys also have an app. So thank you so much for having us today. And
wait, hold on. Martha, so the question, to answer your question, yes, it does cover the information we went over today.
Yes, all the information that was gone over today will be in that emergency app. That emergency app, it has all the types of emergencies that could happen, whether it's a hurricane, a tsunami, all the things, right? I think in Santa Cruz, they have a warning going on, right? So, I'm pretty sure if you download that app, if you live in that area, you'll be getting those warnings. So it has national and local alerts that it gives you and provides to you. So definitely download that app. It's very useful.
And again, thank you so much for joining our presentation today in Be Red Cross Ready Edition. And we hope you learned something today.
Yeah, thank you once again.
And thank you for ACC Services too for hosting us today as well.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone.